Welcome everyone to Deny, Delay, Depose. Health over wealth. It feels like every week we're dealing with a fresh set of bizarre events, connected or not, that all seem to circle back to the same core problem. It's a little exhausting.
Exhausting is putting it mildly. It feels like we're living in some kind of twisted alternate reality show.
I think that the term bizarre is a little strong. Everything is still within the realm of expectation, given current events.
I guess that depends on what your expectations are at this point. Seeing Elon Musk potentially start a new political party while Trump is suggesting he might sic a government agency on him, all while the same administration is settling a lawsuit with Paramount over 60 Minutes. I mean, come on.
Exactly. It's almost orchestrated, like pieces moving on a very strange chessboard, and the Mangione thing is at the center.
Orchestrated might be giving it too much credit. I think it's more like a bunch of independent actors all pursuing their own goals, and sometimes those goals align or clash in unexpected ways. The lawsuit settlement, for example.
Okay, but even if it's not orchestrated, the through line for me is always how these power plays impact actual people, especially when it comes to healthcare. This Musk-Trump feud, okay, it's entertaining, but what's the fallout when it's connected to things like environmental regulations or, even the Doge agency potentially targeting individuals?
It's all connected. This wall of receipts that DOG put up, listing canceled leases, grants, contracts, that stuff directly impacts community health, especially in rural areas like Wyoming. That WS office that nearly got shut down, that's tribal collaboration, conservation efforts. These aren't abstract concepts. These are things that affect people's well-being.
Okay, I agree that these things have tangible impacts, but I also think we need to acknowledge the context of limited resources and the need for efficiency. Sometimes those kinds of cuts are necessary for long-term sustainability of the system.
But who decides what's necessary? Is it really about sustainability? Or is it about shifting resources to other priorities that benefit, well, someone, but maybe not the average person?
Exactly. That's the core issue. It's always about prioritizing profits and power over people. The Paramount settlement, for instance. Trump sues CBS over a 60 Minutes interview demanding billions, and Paramount settles for $16 million, money that's supposedly going to his presidential library. What does that even mean?
Well, from Paramount's perspective, it's likely a cost-benefit analysis. Litigation is expensive, time-consuming, and uncertain. Settling allows them to avoid further legal fees and potential reputational damage, especially with the Skydance merger on the horizon.
Right, but what about the message it sends? That you can bully the media, file a frivolous lawsuit, and get a payout. And who ultimately pays for that? It's not like Paramount is just printing money. It's coming from somewhere, maybe impacting future news budgets, or maybe even trickling down to higher subscription costs for consumers.
It's a chilling effect, pure and simple. It's designed to silence dissent, to intimidate anyone who might dare to question the powerful. And it works. It really works.
I understand the concern about the chilling effect, but I also think it's important to acknowledge the potential for bias in media. There has to be some form of accountability. Is a lawsuit the right way to achieve that? Probably not. But dismissing all criticism as bullying isn't helpful either. So in this case, are we talking about generational trauma with people thinking it's rigged or something?
I think that there's definitely a through line of distrust and the feeling of powerlessness. People feel like the system is rigged, that their voices don't matter. And that creates a kind of societal trauma generation after generation. It builds up.
Absolutely. Look at the healthcare workers. They're dealing with this stuff every single day. The burnout, the moral injury, seeing patients denied care because of insurance loopholes, fighting with administrators over resources. It's constant, and it's traumatic.
Burnout is a serious problem, no question, but I'm not sure I'd classify it as generational trauma. It's more of an occupational hazard, a consequence of a demanding and stressful profession. And frankly, those kinds of effects affect ALL job types. We are all trying to make it through the day, you know?
But it's not just the stress of the job, is it? It's the feeling that you're complicit in a system that's actively harming people. That's a different level of stress, a different kind of burden. You're not just tired, you're morally wounded.
And that moral injury, that gets passed down. Think about healthcare workers who are the children of healthcare workers. They see their parents struggling, sacrificing, fighting against the system that shapes their worldview. It influences their career choices. It perpetuates the cycle.
Okay, I see your point about the intergenerational aspect, but I still think that framing it as trauma might be a bit of an exaggeration. We're talking about learned behaviors, attitudes, and expectations. Yes, those can be negative, but they're not necessarily traumatic in the clinical sense.
Maybe not clinically defined trauma in every case, but the impact is very real. It creates a sense of cynicism, resignation, a feeling that nothing will ever change. And that cynicism can be just as damaging as outright trauma. So, what are real ways to fix it?
The entire system has to be rebuilt. We need to move away from this profit-driven model and embrace a system that prioritizes people's health and well-being above all else. And the first step is to stop lying to ourselves. It's that everything is fine and that we should just work harder and not rock the boat.
A complete overhaul is unrealistic. The existing system has strengths, like the ability to have AI do a lot of the administrative work.
I think some people can't just pull themselves up by their bootstraps, like insurance companies may make them believe. Because you see that someone has no boots at all. They were given a pair that are much too small, or someone stole their boots a long time ago. The same thing is to be said of how AI is going to be used to help people.
Precisely. A rising tide lifts all boats. But if some boats are already sinking, or if some people don't even have a boat, a rising tide just drowns them faster. We need to address those underlying inequities first.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? Beyond just saying universal healthcare or Medicare for all, how do we actually get there from where we are now? I hear you on boots, so how do we get people footwear?
Well, for one thing, we need to start by acknowledging the scale of the problem. We can't keep tinkering around the edges, making incremental changes that don't address the root causes. We need a fundamental shift in priorities and values, right? It starts with what we value.
Exactly. We need to decommodify healthcare, treat it as a public good like education or clean water, not a commodity to be bought and sold. It will also help the health workers with their trauma, instead of feeling like a number.
Easier said than done. How do you convince powerful corporations to give up their profits? How do you overcome the political opposition from those who benefit from the current system? I think it needs to be fixed.
You don't convince them. You overpower them. You build a movement so strong, so undeniable that they have no choice but to listen. That means organizing, mobilizing, and demanding change from the bottom up.
And it means challenging the narrative that healthcare is a privilege, not a right. We need to reframe the debate to make it clear that access to healthcare is a fundamental human right that should be guaranteed to everyone, regardless of their income or social status.
I agree with the principle, but I'm concerned about the practicalities. Universal healthcare systems in other countries often have long wait times, limited choices, and lower quality of care. How do we avoid those pitfalls?
Those are legitimate concerns, but they're not insurmountable. We can learn from the successes and failures of other countries and design a system that works for us. That means investing in infrastructure, training more healthcare professionals, and empowering patients to make informed decisions about their care.
And it means addressing the social determinants of health. You can't just give someone access to a doctor if they don't have food to eat, a safe place to live, or a decent job. We need to tackle poverty, inequality, and discrimination if we want to create a truly healthy society.
Social determinants are definitely important, but they're also incredibly complex and difficult to address. How do we tackle issues like poverty and inequality on a systemic level? Those are problems that have plagued humanity for centuries.
One step at a time, guaranteed basic income, affordable housing, universal childcare. These are all policies that can make a real difference in people's lives, and they're all interconnected. When you lift people out of poverty, you improve their health, their education, and their overall well-being.
And we need to prioritize preventative care. Instead of just treating people when they get sick, we need to invest in programs that keep them healthy in the first place. That means promoting healthy lifestyles, providing access to nutritious food, and addressing environmental hazards.
Preventative care is definitely cost-effective in the long run, but it's often difficult to get people to prioritize it. People are busy, they're stressed, and they don't always have the time or resources to focus on their health.
That's where education and outreach come in. We need to empower people to take control of their health by providing them with the information and resources they need to make informed decisions. And we need to create a culture that values health and well-being, not just productivity and profit.
And we need to support healthcare workers. They're the ones on the front lines, dealing with the consequences of a broken system every single day. We need to reduce their workloads, improve their working conditions, and provide them with the mental health support they need to cope with the stress and trauma of their jobs.
Absolutely. Healthcare worker burnout is a major crisis, and it's only going to get worse if we don't address it. We need to create a system that values their contributions and supports their well-being.
It's a monumental task, no doubt, but it's not impossible. We have the resources, the knowledge, and the technology to create a healthcare system that truly serves the needs of all people. What we lack is the political will.
And that's where we come in. We need to raise our voices, demand change, and hold our elected officials accountable. We need to build a movement so powerful that they can no longer ignore us.
I agree that we need to be engaged and advocate for change. But I also think it's important to be realistic about the challenges ahead. Systemic change takes time, and it requires compromise and collaboration. We can't expect to achieve everything overnight.
Maybe, but we also can't afford to wait. People are suffering and dying every day because of a broken system. We need to act with urgency and determination. The time for incremental change is over. It's time for a healthcare revolution.
Exactly. The system is broken, period. Are we ready for AI to be biased too?
I guess you two are right. I'm nervous, but it needs to happen.
We'll get there. We are all in this together. Thanks for being here.